I hate when you forget your Apple Watch and you're like, this whole day is basically a write-off. What's up guys, I'm Nicole, and if you're new to my channel, welcome. I like to do fashion DIYs, and I know I've been a little MIA lately, and that is because I have started working full-time again, so my spare time has been basically cut in half, and it's also summer here in Toronto, meaning you need to spend as much time outside because winter is coming. That has basically been my life lately, and yeah, now I am currently in the parking lot of Value Village because I am here to look for something to wear for a festival themed party. So a friend of mine is having a birthday party next week, and her whole theme is Coachella, and her party name is Clochella because her name's Chloe. So everyone's actually taking this party theme very seriously and creating their outfits, and that's basically all I've been talking about for the past week. So I need to step up my game and figure out what to wear. So that is what I'm doing here. I'm hopefully going to make myself a festival outfit and film the process. So what I'm gonna make, I actually have no idea, which is why I am thrifting today to find something to recreate. Obviously I have to stick with my primary color theme, or hopefully I might do like black if I can't find anything else, but I don't know if it's because of my obsession with primary colors, if it goes hand in hand, but I am just really into like 90s fashion lately, so I'm gonna try to find something that's like primary / 90s, which is kind of my aesthetic these days. So wish me luck. So my thrift trip was semi-successful. I found a pair of pants that could work. I mean, there's a lot of work that needs to be done to them to get them the way I want them. So I am gonna go check out another location, a different thrift store, just to see if I have different options. I didn't find anything for tops, but yeah, still in the process of figuring out my outfit. I still don't know. On to the next. Okay, so I just made it home after my day of thrifting, and I went to the second thrift store and didn't find anything, so I'm just gonna double down on my first purchase, which was a pair of those black pants that I wanted to make into joggers. I'm going to insert a photo of kind of the inspiration that I'm going for. So since I'm going to be using my joggers as kind of my statement piece, I'm going to be putting all my time and energy into making those. So I'm actually just going to use whatever I have for a top. So I'm not going to be making the top, it's just the bottoms. So I'm just going to show you again what I am working with. So the pants I got are honestly the ugliest things, and they're also a little bit too big and very, very long. But that's okay because I'm just going to recreate the whole thing. This is the pair of pants that I picked out. I really like the button details. I like how it's super high-waisted, and I also like how there's like this like belt feature. And there's also these like little like fake pockets. I might add more pockets to like the sides of them to make them more like jogger-esque. I'm really not that sure. But to add the pops of color, I just picked up a couple of fabric pieces, nothing too exciting. This is just some red fabric. I got some blue fabric. And lastly, the same fabric but in white. I kind of want to do like a white jogger stripe on the side. Hopefully that works out. For the fabric, I just tried to go with something that was a similar weight to the pant, and the pant are a little bit more of a thick pant, so I might be sweating in this, but you know what? It's worth it. It's worth it. It's fine. As long as it looks good. And if this doesn't turn out, I will be going in jeans and a t-shirt. That is my plan B. So wish me luck as I start this process.
Okay, so this is what I was working with. The shape of the leg is nowhere near what I wanted, so the fit was what I had to start with first. I removed the belt and flipped the pants inside out, then used chalk to draw out my new leg shape. I started with the waist and took in roughly about 1.5 inches from either side. I also tapered out the shape of the leg of the pant. Once I got the shape down, I folded the pants in half, then secured the fold with a pin in the waist, a pin in the gusset, and a pin securing the hem together. Once the pants were laid out flat, folded in half, it was time to cut, using my chalk line as a reference and adding a 1/2 inch seam allowance.
Okay, so this is where I've gotten with my pants so far. I have trimmed down the sides and then re-sewed up the sides to get an idea with the fit. Just a basting stitch though, so I can easily take it out because I am going to be inserting a white stripe down the whole length of the pant. But as you can see, it is a little snug. I like the shape of it, especially in the hips and the bum, but it is a little snug, so I'm going to have to figure this out. But it's okay because I'm adding the white stripes, so I can kind of make up the difference with that.
So now that I have an idea of how I want the fit, I'm going to move on to the color blocking part of the jogger. But first I have to seam rip the sides I had just sewn. Once the side seams have been seam ripped, I folded the pants in half again and used pins to secure the legs in place. And I also used pins to map out the placement of the color block. I decided to draw it out with the pins instead of chalk because the chalk could get messy if I tried to shift my lines, so pins just made the most sense for me. So my color blocking is going to be red and then back to black and then blue for the rest of the pant. Then I cut using the pins as a guideline. Starting with the first section, which is going to be red, I am essentially using these black cutouts as my pattern pieces. So I am going to seam rip one of the legs, so I now have a front and a back piece. Then I transferred my 2 black pieces onto my red fabric, making sure the red fabric was folded in half so I can cut 2 pieces at a time. Then I cut both the front and back pieces, giving myself a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Once the pieces were cut, I matched up a front and back piece with right sides together and sewed both pieces. Now it's time to attach the red pieces to the black. It took me some time to figure out which red piece went with which leg, so take your time to figure it out because nothing was more frustrating than seam ripping and re-sewing this part. I started with matching up the side seams and then pinned with right sides together before sewing. Once I had both sides attached, it looked something like this. Before moving on to the next layer, I just wanted to get an idea of where each color block was going to hit me on my leg, and I decided to trim about a 1/2 inch off of the red so the next black piece would go fully over my knee. Then I went back to my pant leg to cut out the black section, and careful not to mix up my pant legs. I attached the black and red pieces together, making sure to line up the center seams before sewing, and to complete the last color block, which I made blue, I repeated the same steps from cutting out the red pieces. I used the remaining black fabric as my pattern piece, and since the pant was too long on me, I decided to trim off a few inches before cutting out the blue pieces. Once they have been cut, I matched up the front and back pieces together and sewed both pieces. Then it was time to attach the blue pieces to the rest of the pants. Before I pinned it down, I lined up the seams and flipped it over to make sure I was sewing the right way. So this is kind of what we're working with so far. The next step is to add the white stripe. To do that, I folded my white fabric in half lengthwise and pinned it to keep it in place. Then marked out a 2-inch guideline with a fabric marker before cutting. So my thought process here was to fold the strip over to mimic a similar thickness throughout the waistband. And I just did a little hem here to prevent it from fraying on the inside. Then I cleaned up the outside edge of the pants before pinning right sides together and sewing. I also want to point out that I did go back afterwards and zigzag stitch all the edges to stop the fraying and to clean up the insides. I just didn't record that part. And I repeated the same thing to the other side of the stripe and trimmed off any excess seam allowance, and then did the whole thing all over again for the other pant leg. So far, I am liking what I am working with, and I am so close to being done. I just have to do the final step, which is add the elastic to make it into a jogger. I thought I had other elastic options, but I didn't, so glittery elastic it is. I then measured out the circumference of my ankles, making sure there was enough room to get them on and off, and then added an extra 1/2 inch for a seam allowance, and then sewed. At this point, I have tried them on, and I've got an idea as to where I want to hem my pants, so I marked them with a pin. Then using a ruler and some chalk, I marked my hemline to all sides and both legs. I then added 2 extra inches and marked that out with chalk, and this is going to be my seam allowance for my elastic. Then I trimmed off the excess. So to evenly distribute the fabric around the cuff, I found it easier to break it down into quarters. So on my elastic, I marked out into 4s and repeated the same thing on the pants. Then I took the elastic and looped it around the pant leg with the pants inside out. So now all I have to do is line up each mark. And I used my chalked hemline as a reference to keep the cuff straight. Then folded the raw edge into the elastic for a clean edge and pinned it up to keep it in place. I then sewed along the top of the elastic with a zigzag stitch to keep the elastic secure. And once that was done, I did it to the other leg and the joggers were done.
So I just have to say, I have outdone myself. I am so proud of these pants. They turned out exactly how I pictured. And I know I didn't include all the times I had to seam rip and re-sew the colored stripes, but patience is key and it was totally worth it. If you guys ever recreate any of my tutorials, please be sure to tag me so I can check out what you guys create. My Instagram handle is linked below as well in case you want to catch me on the gram. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and if you'd like to see more, please be sure to give this video a big thumbs up and to subscribe, and I will catch you in the next one.